All right. So this is the inaugural episode, episode one of Meet the Poodle Porter Alliance Breeders. And I have got Todd Baier, or Byer,
Byer.
actually.
Yes, thank you.
Byer. Yeah, my phone says Bear every time I called you.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Windy Sage Pudelpointers.
Yeah.
So, Todd, good to talk to you again.
Good to see
It's
you,
been a
man.
while.
Yeah,
Tell me about yourself. Introduce yourself, please.
you bet. You bet. Well, my name is Todd Baier. I live out here in Billings, Montana. I've been a lifelong hunter. I think I my first hunting memory was following behind my dad carrying a BB gun, wearing corduroy pants, hunting deer, with every step going voop voop, and every time I changed the gun, it went shh because it was an old style BB gun. But I say that to tell you that I've been hunting, I think, since I was like 7 or something like that. And I'm now 51. I got into bird hunting in the early 2000s. In fact, just recently on YouTube, I saw the video that turned my interest towards poodle pointers, but I'll get back to that. But um, I hunted all the way up through college and mostly big game hunting. Did a little bit of bird hunting now and again. But then in my 30s, I wanted to spend more days in the field, and I had tried bow hunting, and I didn't really like it, and so I bought a shotgun and I started hunting birds. And I pretty quickly found out that I needed to get a dog, you know. Um, so more about me. I'm married. I live here in Billings, Montana, on the west end of Billings. Um, do a little bit of hunting around here. I started my breeding business in 2017, had our first litter January 20th of 2017. And now it's 2025, so I guess I'm 8 years into it. So that was rambling. I'm sorry, but
It's all right.
kind of all over the
So,
place.
when I visited you 4 years ago now,
Yeah,
Gunner was still around. Was
yeah,
Gunner your first dog?
yeah. Gunner was my first dog,
First poodle pointer, or just first bird dog?
first bird dog. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Prior to Gunner, I had in high school and college, I had a Rottweiler. It was a really nice dog, but that was just in a, like obedience stuff. We never got into any of the bite work or anything, but
You
mostly
didn't get into force
obedience.
fetch,
No, didn't do any of that stuff.
ear
Um,
pinch?
I taught him to sit and sits and plots and hear and heel and all that. But no, Gunner was my first poodle pointer. I bought him in 2007. Was living in Western Montana in 2004 and was addicted to hunting and fishing TV and was really addicted to watching dogs retrieve geese in fields and point upland birds. I thought those two things looked incredibly fun, and and it was a show that came on called A Dog's Life, and they talked about poodle pointers and how they were a do-it-all dog. And the breeder they talked to on that show was Lisa McNamee, and they talked about the Poodle Pointer Club in North America and how the dogs were selectively bred. And that all sounded really good. And I think I saw that about 2004. And I did some web searching and I found Cedarwood's kennel. Well, first I found the PCNA and found these very restricted puppy contracts that made you drive out to Oregon to test the dogs. And then I found Bob Ferris, and through Bob's website, I found out about NAVDA. Um, and then I moved out to Billings in 2006, and out here on the cusp of the Great Plains, and the bird hunting took off, and we begged, borrowed, and stole dogs from people to go hunt, and eventually well, in 2006, I called Bob and got on his list. And at that point, he said, you got to stay in touch with me and call as many as my references as you can. So I take breaks from work and I call his references uh, and Gunner came out to us in 2007. He was born in April, so I must have got him in June.
What
No,
was I'm sorry. You
yeah,
said what was his registered name?
it was Cedar. So this is an embarrassment for me because my very first pedigree I filled out, I did it wrong, but it was Cedar Wood, not Cedar Woods. Cedar Wood, Yellowstone Gunner, Gunner. Um, but his call name was spelled Gunnr, and so he's kind of a hard dog to find. But he was out of Cedarwood's first offense and Prairie Trout's Deja Vu, and was a really high drive dog. Um, and that got me into NAVDA, and my first test was down in Rocky Mountain chapter with Gunner, and he put a 112 on him. Didn't know what I was doing really. I trained with another guy out here that got a poodle pointer from Stone's Throw, and we trained with the Yellowstone Pointing Dog Club back then, and um, so, anyways, that's how I got Gunner, and that was the kind of the beginnings of it, you know.
I enjoyed my time with him. There's something special about old dogs. Was he? I think he was 14 when I was
Yeah,
out there.
yeah.
Uh,
You were there right before he passed, you know.
yeah, yeah. I
And
had coffee one morning out on the porch, and he came up, put his head on my shoulder. It was pretty cool. It was just me and him. It was pretty
he
fun.
was a really neat dog, and um, if I knew then what I know now about training, that he'd have been a utility dog, you know, because he had it in him. He certainly did.
What
Sometimes he was a little overdriven, but
this could kind of lead us into where I want to go next. Like you're in Montana, you have some unique hunting opportunities, and
yeah,
Gunner was probably the first dog that really opened them all up for you.
yeah,
Like swans, like
yeah,
people, most
yeah,
people can't believe our dogs can handle swans, and you and I know that's not true. And he probably had more swans than any other dog, maybe in history.
yeah. I think he retrieved five or six. Not just mine, but for other people as well. Um, well, because when you have a dog, I think Gunner's the first time we took him duck hunting, um, he ran out and found a duck that we had shot, and then it went down. We on this side channel, and he ran out and picked it up and brought it right back to me. And Gunner was an exceptional waterfowl dog, really an exceptional waterfowl dog. Well, we still do. We hunt a lot of geese in fields out here, and he was special at that. He was really, really good. As he got older, he got better. Even, you could control him a little bit more. He wasn't a steady dog at all, but boy, he could chase down a goose. And then we got because of him. I found out about swan hunting, and then with my group of friends, I pestered them until somebody would do it with me, and eventually we hunted swans. And like I said, I got to retrieve one of my buddy's first swans, um, my first swan. It's like five swans. Yeah, pretty cool.
That's pretty neat. Yeah,
Neat dog,
absolutely.
really neat dog, and wasn't really force fetched. I told people I was force fetching him, much the way some people in NABDA tell me they're force fetching their dog now for 5 months, Everybody chapter, I mean,
I
Um,
say it's like being pregnant. You either are or you aren't
yeah,
force fed.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
you can be one day and not the next.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what other opportunities do you have out there? Montana, from my perspective, sounds like a paradise.
Yeah, it's good. We start in September. We've got Sharpies and Hunts. It's basically grouse and partridge season starting September 1st. Um, so out here it's sharp-tailed grouse, Hungarian partridge, you can get to the mountains and you can do some rough grouse hunting and blues, and Franklins and spruce. I don't go to the mountains anymore. I have the kind of balance that if I could fall off of something flat, I would, so I don't go on anything that's too steep. So I hunt the prairies, but so out here for me, it's mostly sharptails in early season. I love hunting sharpies, and I hunt Huns is kind of a bonus bird. But you can also hunt sage grouse for the first month. Um, and then at the end of September, waterfowl season opens. And we have two flyways in Montana. So the Pacific Flyway gets one more duck than we do, and we get a longer goose season over here than they do over there. But I mean, about the only thing we don't see in Montana is like the seagoing ducks. Although there's stories of brant being shot in Montana,
I don't doubt that.
you know.
Young birds get
So
lost all the
yeah,
time.
they do. They do. Um, but like last year we shot a bunch. I mean, you could shoot one a day or two a day canvasback, and that was really fun early season. Them and redheads, and then when the weather came down, then we started getting mallards and some of the bigger puddle ducks. And then we've got swans. The tag, when I first got started hunting swans, you could just buy a surplus tag, and now I put in for the tag. And when surplus went on sale, I think it went on sale on Thursday afternoon, and it sold out Friday at 4 o'clock. Right, so more people are doing it, and then we can hunt in portions of Montana. We can get a permit for sandhill cranes. Um, So you might find there was a blog post that I wrote for the Yellowstone Hunt Club. It was about hunting big birds because one fall we had a really great big bird hunt. We killed a couple of swans, and then we had three of us that killed a limit of sandhill cranes.
Wow.
That hasn't
That's an
happened
epic
since
day.
then, but it
That's
but it
an
was
epic
it
day.
was it was epic. It was really epic. It was fun. Um, So I mean, that's Montana, and that's just the kind of the eastern half. Like you go to western Montana, it's a different flyway, and you got mountains, and and it's river hunting mostly. So it's a different animal. Um, the Yellowstone River is on. Excuse me, Billings is on the Yellowstone River, and um, the Yellowstone, as it passes Billings, is the largest or the longest undammed section of river in the United States. And so it's pretty gnarly, and it almost never closes. It would close for you and I, like it gets frozen. There's like ice flows and stuff. But if there's open water, there's ducks and geese in it, you know, um, because ducks and geese kind of live in the ice and snow,
Yes, they do.
So our late season hunting is pretty good. Kind
You
of
haven't
tough
even
to
gotten
get
around to
access.
pheasants yet.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about pheasants.
You have pheasants in your backyard. I've seen them myself.
Yeah, when we had Kyle Huff out here for a duck search clinic, and every morning when we were driving out in it was May 17th and 18th, he just couldn't keep his eyes off the pheasants in the fields and running up to the road, and pheasants in this part of Montana are kind of they're in the riparian kind of areas. They're around the river, they're around water. Um, Central Montana has a decent pheasant hunting. Um, uh, Eastern Montana has decent pheasant hunting. It's not South Dakota. The birds in Montana, in my opinion, and I'm not a biologist, I'm just a dog breeder and trainer, but seems like pheasants are a little bit smaller in Montana than they are in South Dakota. Um, I think it has to do with food source. I'm guessing. Because South Dakota is a little more lush than Montana is, you know, deeper, thicker, the CRP and whatnot. So, but yeah, there's good pheasant hunting here.
Yeah, you had a lot of opportunities, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, and
So,
yeah,
so move us forward. Move us forward. So, how did you
yeah.
decide to become the Windy Sage Poodle Pointers?
Um, I bought a dog from Bob in 2010, and his name was Sage Points, which became Hard Trigger. But Sage Points Double Barrel, I think. No, it was Sage Points Whirlwind, and I named him Cooper. Because Bob, it was kind of a whirlwind how the whole thing happened. But anyway, so I had Cooper and Gunner, and I actually had Cooper entered into a UT test and was starting to train for that. And he got sick and was struggling to breathe one Sunday afternoon. And by Monday morning, when I took him to the vet, he was really struggling. I had to carry him into the vet, and he had a pylothorax infection. Um, Probably from a weed seed. And so pus fills up the chest cavity and it collapsed his lungs from the inside, you know, and killed him. And at that point, I had changed jobs. Previous to 2013, I was a retail manager and worked kind of a retail manager schedule, which was good for hunting, but not good for much else. I left retail and went to banking, and so I had a little bit more time. And in 2013, I got married, and so uh, we just had I had more opportunity to do things. So I called Bob and told him about what happened. And I said, I think next year I'm going to need a dog. And then I called him after that and I said, hey, I'm wondering what you would think about me becoming a breeder. Um, so I need to back up a little bit, but since I bought Gunner from Bob, Bob and I remained like phone friends for all those years, you know, because we're talking now it's 2013, so Gunner's like 6, you know. Um, and Bob and I had talked a lot about breeding and a lot about breed mate and a lot about genetics and whatnot. So I called Bob and I said, "What do you think if I became a breeder?" And he said, "Yeah, we need a good breeder in Montana." And so, anyways, he so we went on the wait then that was it the spring of 20. I think now we're at 2015, I think. Um, Pretty sure that's when Hadley was born. And so Cooper was born in 2010, died in 14. And Hadley was born in 15. And Bob said that this was the kind of female that you should start a kennel with. And so I went there to buy the dog and he offered me 2 of them, but he pointed out the one that he would start a kennel with if he was doing it. So I bought her, and little pup was hell on wheels. A whole different deal than all my other pups. Um, and so uh, raised Hadley and hunted her at 5 months old on ducks. And her first duck retrieve, she pulled 2 decoys to the duck, you know, at 5 months old. She
To
was
the duck,
yeah, to the
not
duck.
back from the duck.
Yeah, because she hit the decoy cords and caught him and then just kept swimming and pulled the decoys all the way out to the dead duck, you
Did
know.
not care.
Didn't care. Didn't even, yeah, just didn't care. Um, so I hunted Hadley quite a bit, and then we ran her in natural ability. Her first test when we ran her, she was in heat, and I think might still be my lowest ever NA score. It was like an 86. Um, and you know what an 86 looks like. It was a rodeo.
Not me.
But you've seen one.
I've seen a lot worse than 80. I think I've
Yeah.
seen a 36.
So um we trained and she got over her heat cycle and I ran her like a month later. She was 110. And about a year later, 2017, January 20, well, we drove to Boise to breed her and um bred her to Czar. Uh, um, and January 20th, 2017, we had our first litter.
Was that the only time you bred a Desire?
No, I bred her twice to Czar.
Okay. Okay. Because there
I
have been some
didn't.
very, very good dogs that have come out of that breeding. I was wondering if that was your first one that produced them. That'd
Yeah,
be a
well, it was
home
the
run to
first one that
start.
produced that first 204 dog out of her, and then we bred her again, and I kept a female, and that was the litter that High Roller came out of. So that was the 2018 litter. Um, and then out of the litter money, we bought Berkeley, and I no, we bought Berkeley, and yeah, that's what happened. 2017, I think maybe 17 we bought Berkeley. And then in 18 we kept Parker and bought Benelli, I think. Pretty sure that was 18.
So you were
Uh
you were really rolling at that point. You're really
yeah.
setting yourself up for future success.
Yeah, and those Hadley, Berkeley and Benelli really formed the the foundation for what I'm doing today, you know. So we bred Hadley twice to Czar and got a 200 point dog out of each one of those breedings. And then we bred her to Jumping Jack, and that created Windy Sage Rudy Red. It's a 204 or 201. He's a 200 point
He's a
dog.
he's a 204.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then her last breeding was to Diesel. And that created Shadow Operator. And Shadow Operator's a 201 dog. Um, so she was quite successful. But then Berkeley, then she was another one that struggled in NA early. Um, but this was a different deal. She as a puppy, she liked to chew on wood, and she got an infection way back up in here. So it was about a month before her NA test. This whole part of her face just swole up, and so she was on some pretty heavy antibiotics. And when I ran her, she just wouldn't run. In that first test, it was kind of odd. And but then looking into it, in bomb detection dogs, antibiotics have been shown to lower the efficacy of their nose work. Um, so that was interesting. I reran her and like 3 weeks later and put a 106 on her, which did not belie the kind of hunting dog that she became. As she matured, Berkeley became like my biggest running dog, and she was naturally steady to flush. Like when we talk about those, the new gun dog test, and we're talking about like some dogs could just pass the gun dog test. But she is a
Yep.
dog that could pass the gun dog test with really very little training, right? Um, and the first couple of breedings with Berkeley never really produced much, but then her third breeding, I bred her to Diesel, and that created Little Muddy, who put a 185 prize two on him. And then her final breeding, we bred her to Private Reserve, Killbuck's Private Reserve. And we just, in our chapter, in the last month, One of the males, first time handler put a 188 on it, and then another first time handler put a 194 on one of the females out of that breeding.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
Very nice.
and then, and then there's Benelli, right? And Benelli is a special dog. Benelli was out of one of the straws of semen that First Defense produced, and he bred that. He used that. Bob used one of those straws on. What is the name of that dog?
What Foothills, Boise Brown.
Foothills. I couldn't think of
Yeah.
Foothills. Yeah, Foothills Boise Brown. And Foothills Boise Brown was
Rerun.
out of rerun, right? Bred to that BC Donna Kenya.
Yeah.
And that's actually that that pairing, that dog, Foothills Boise Brown, is in Berkeley's pedigree too. But then Bob told me on the phone, he says, I think I'm gonna breed First Defense to Foothills Boise Brown, and I knew the breeding, and I said, can I buy one? And he said, well, they're not bred yet, but and so that was Benelli, and um, you know, I bred Benelli exclusively to Cedarwoods Kaiser, because it was a special breeding. I think the NA average, don't quote me because I haven't looked at it in a while, but the NA average for the first three litters was like a 109. And then that pairing produced your dog, Amy Lou, right?
Yeah. I came to Montana for that
Yeah,
litter.
you came out and got
Yeah,
that
I could
dog.
I could have gone anywhere, and I went to Montana.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty special breeding. There's a dog out here named Funky Snowman, Windy Sage Funky Snowman. That's a slick that I used him to create 2 litters. Um, it's kind of carrying on that line. So right now we're kind of mixed. I'm in a position where I can mix and match those 3 females. Um,
This might be a good spot to just take it like a small break and a sidetrack, but this
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
the benefit of the alliance in
Yes, for
that
sure.
I had a litter with rerun that didn't take,
Hmm.
and I had several breeders wanted puppies, but none were getting one before me, and I didn't couldn't get myself a dog.
Yeah,
So called you and I wanted one of those dogs.
yeah.
And so you sold me an unbelievable dog.
Mhm.
And then, in short order, you've got 2 of her puppies back in your kennel for you.
Yeah,
It worked out great.
yeah. One
And
that
if we're
one.
competitors, that wouldn't have happened.
No, yeah, and that's.
None of it.
I think that's one of the cool things about Napa is that it fosters this idea that we work together. That was kind of one of the big pushes from Bob and Bill Athens at the beginning, was that this was an alliance that should work together to achieve things. And you look at what they did with like First Defense and that dog Chara or Kyra, however you pronounce it, right? Um, and importing dogs and just sharing all that genetics. Um, so you hear about breedings. Like I facilitated a purchase for a friend of mine, the guy that owns Funky Snowman. Um, I facilitated a purchase of a dog from Stephen Lundy because it was a line breeding around Romo, and well, I mean, you can't hardly pass that stuff up. So then I took that female and I just well then I bought another female from Lundy that was out of Windy Sage Rudy Red, right? Um, and and his dog Cedarwoods Piper. And she's got this big overblown coat. That was one of the dogs I bred to that slick. And wow, we have really nice coats on these puppies. And that pedigree is stacked around Tucker and Romo. And that's stuff that I couldn't do on my own, you know? Um, so it's really interesting. It's really interesting. And then that female that you sent me, we just were doing some duck chases with her, and it turned into like a full-blown duck search. It wasn't like perfect, right? But she looked good. And I shot pigeons over her in the morning, and she was pointing long enough that I could walk up and pop a trap and kill the bird, you know. She's like a year old.
She would have
Really
passed
nice
the
dog.
water portion. She would have passed the water portion of the NA test at 8 weeks of age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Throw
yeah,
bumpers and she
yeah.
swims out and grabs them and brings them back. She's a good little dog, just like her mom.
Yeah, no, I really like her. And then I can go a boatload of different ways with her in terms of breeding because she's really well bred, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so it's fun, super cool. And yeah,
Your
like
little
I said,
sister, your
that
little
dog's
sister's
out of
right behind me.
yeah, and that dog's out of Lido, which I would never have been able to breed the Lido unless it was like frozen semen or chilled or something like that. And sometimes, you know, those dogs that are owned by guys that aren't breeders, that's not as available as other dogs, you know.
Yeah, in my
So
experience, some of it's some guys don't want to breed their dogs, and there's
yeah,
no change in that opinion. And
yeah,
sometimes you find the right guy with the right dog. And
yeah,
Lido's Cedar was comfortably numb,
yeah,
204 dog, just
yeah,
missed his VC, 112 NA dog, and that dog you gave me is the same score as 112, 204, young
yeah,
age dog.
yeah,
Good dogs, really good dogs.
yeah.
So what made, so what made you go pro? How did that all come about? Because now you're taking
Oh,
titles on.
well, I was working at the bank and I was training dogs and training my own dogs, trying to get dogs through UT, and it was hard. And I didn't quite have all the infrastructure. Mostly, I guess I went pro because I that's what I wanted to do. So I kind of engineered my life. I quit the bank. I went to a small local small business, worked for them, and that only required me to work like 4 hours a day. And so I was training in the morning, and people were bringing some of my dogs back to me to do stuff with, you know. And so the year that I went pro, I advertised and I brought in, well, between my dogs and client dogs, I had 8 dogs in for force fetch in February that year and dove in, you know. I had, before that, I guess, um, I started going to every clinic that I could go to, you know. So Mark Whalen was out here and did a force fetch clinic. And so I adopted his ways and then I also have do some of the stuff that Evan Graham has done, what's in Evan Graham's book. So it's kind of a mishmash of those two ideas. And then some of me that's in there now, but I guess the real answer is why go pro? Because I can work for myself, and I'm not good working for other people. I'm the worst employee you could ever have because you can't motivate me. If I'll only do it if I'll only be really good at it if I really want to. I have to be really bought in, and um, so that's a perfect guy to run his own business, I think. And it's been fruitful. It's fun. It's like right now, I mean, you see all these different dogs, and one of the big benefits I have right now is you bring in other breeds and you compare them against the dogs that you have in your kennels, um, how fast they get through different trainings, force fetch and steadiness and all that, you know, and that allows you to kind of keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, you know. So that's a benefit. That isn't really a why. I think the why is that I'm cantankerous. I don't like working for people, you
Well, you're
know.
having success. So you're starting to stack up some stud dogs, which the breed needs.
Yeah, this year in particular was really fun. Some of it has been putting dogs with the right people. Some of it has been me training the dogs. Um, you know, so I think it's a combination. Um, we also, you know, I started with another guy. I started an NAPPA chapter out here. We had our first test last year, and so we had our third test in May, and And so then what does that all mean? Well, it's all these people that are wanting their dogs trained and coming out to training days. And so it's easier to run UT dogs if you go to training days because you run your dogs and you have all these people and you make them walk with you because you walk with them, right? You know how it works. So
Yep.
that certainly has helped. I mean, the whole business has kind of this year, in some respects, a bunch of things matured and matriculated, so to speak, kind of came up. Um, so I had run Caesar to a 201 last year, and he was already qualified because Lundy had run him to a 192, 191, something like that previously. I think this isn't a dig at Steven at all. I think Caesar really jives with me really well. I don't know why that is, but we have a pretty good connection. He's a neat dog. He tends to, in tests and whatnot, he tends to perform above his level, um, which not all dogs do that, right? And then I worked on Dozer and passed him this spring. And then I sold the dog to Chris Frankie. Chris Frankie put that 188 on that dog that's out of Winston and Berkeley. So Dozer and Oni both got pen hip today. Um, and I'm assuming it's going to come back good. And so they're both qualified stud dogs now. And then we've got Flicker as a qualified stud dog. And we had a training. We went out and did some backing drills the other day, and between three guys, we had five or six steady dogs. And last year it was just shadow operator, right?
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say compare that to 10 years ago.
yeah, yeah. And man, you go back to Gunner and I did everything um half-assed with him. I didn't ever put all the right effort in because I never
You
did
kill,
pick
you
a
killed a lot of birds though.
yeah, we killed a ton of birds. Well, which is what you can do with these dogs. You don't have to have a trained dog to hunt with them. I mean, if you could teach them here, right, and um, and be disciplined and only shoot birds they point. You can make a pretty good dog just hunting. But that's what he was. He was a fantastic hunting dog, right? Um, Now, what's funny, I guess, is now I have more dogs and I have more dogs that are steady, and I I kill less birds over any individual dog than I ever did Gunner. Like we
Right,
killed
absolutely.
tons and tons over him. But that
Absolutely.
was back when I was one guy and one dog. You
Yeah.
know, what's cool now is that the one guy and one dog thing is a pretty powerful thing because now I think that there's more information out there for training, um, and there's trainers that will come out and do seminars and whatnot, and guys can go to that, and that one guy can learn a boatload and just pour energy into a dog. That's basically that Frankie Zoni. Um, Chris retired like last year, or the year before, and got Oni and just poured himself into the dog. And he's re-entered. He wants to get a prize one. He's chasing the dragon, you know, and he'll get there. Because he's being fastidious about it, especially about retrieves, and that's UT. UT's kind of a retrieving game.
Almost 50%.
Yeah. Yeah. And almost all obedience. So,
Yep.
but it's super fun, super fun. I wouldn't have guessed we'd be here last year.
Where will we be next year? Yeah,
Yeah, who
right.
knows, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, before you get there, you got a couple of litters coming up. Are they spoken for?
Um, these two that I'm gonna breed this week, I've got guys on the list, and I've got a couple emails. But no, I haven't really put anybody's name particularly on it. There's a person that's gonna hear that and it'll dismay her, but um, they got to stay in touch, and it's a long process. So if I breed these dogs next week, we're 4 months from puppies going home, right?
Correct. Yep.
And in this current world, 4 months is like an eon. I mean, it'll go by really fast, but you know how many changes we're gonna have in the world in 4 months? It'll be
How
nuts.
many, and as a fellow breeder, how many changes on your list you'll have in four
Yeah, and
months?
on the
This
list, and
your rock solid guy today is gone in 4 months.
well, yeah, because life happens, people get divorced and grandmas die and people take jobs elsewhere and guys quit hunting and go vegan or something.
So, how can people reach out to you about either getting on your list or about training? You're probably not
Yeah,
taking client dogs now. We're in July now, but next year I'm sure you will be. Maybe you are this year. I don't know.
well, I do there's yeah, I mean, so let's go through that. So to reach out to me, it's easy. It's windysage.com. That's probably the best way to find me. The worst way is to contact me on socials, because that's kind of here and gone. But you can send me an email through a couple of forms on my website. Or you can email me. It's windysagepp@gmail.com, Windy Sage Pudelpointers, pp@gmail.com. And then I always answer my phone, and my work number is 406-606-2636. Um, if you're going to get on my list for puppies, expect to call me a bunch. I want to vet people because I'm not selling, widgets. We're selling puppies, and I want to place puppies with all the right people. And I want to talk to people a lot because if you get a good idea of the people that you have on your list and then you spend time with your puppies, it seems to me that like it organically happens in your mind. You just kind of pick who goes to whom, right? Because you've had a lot of good conversations. You got to know the guy as a hunter and what he wants for his family and whatnot. Um, so if I work the system, it all kind of falls into place. So expect to call me a lot. And people always say I don't want to bother you. Well, I told you to call me. Like I'm different. If you say call me a lot, I will call you a lot. You know, like I've got a camper out there that got hailed on, and the guy who's going to fix it for me is like, it said like the squeaky wheel, right? He says, "Stay in touch with me." I'm like, "I will." Like I just take people at their word. I'm like, if you say do it, I will do it. Bob said, call as many as my of my references as possible, and then stay in touch with me. Right? I never let a missed call dissuade me. You know, I just said, well, I'll call at a better time, and I called, and I called, and I called because I always thought this is what I tell people to do. I thought at the very first deal, I thought Bob will not sell another dog to another person before he sells a dog to me if I have anything to say about it, right?
That's a great attitude.
And that's the attitude you have to get a good dog from a breeder, right? Because
Yep.
guys that'll
That's
stay in contact that they get front of mind, and then you think about them, and the guys that you're really thinking about, they tend to get the best dogs, you know?
Stephen Lundy told me the same thing. That's how he got a dog from Bob Ferris.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think
He's
it
not going to sell
all,
another dog without hearing from me first.
yeah, yeah, and there are people that take that attitude with me, and it works. You know, even some people that initial phone call, I'm like, I don't know about this, but then they'll just keep calling, and it works out. Training season this year is kind of truncated for me. It's smaller. There's not as many dogs coming in by design because uh, I'm taking Shadow Operator Caesar to the Invitational, and so um, and I can tell you, I underestimated how much time and effort that this is going to take and money. Um,
I could have told you all those things.
Yeah. Well, until you're in it, I don't know that you can quite grasp it because it's
That's why
nuts.
I've never done it. I
It's
just tell people.
nuts. It's nuts. Um, no, I think as a trainer, I think every hunting dog should be able to back another hunting dog when they point, and I think every hunting dog should be able to take a to do a blind retrieve, right? And probably handle a double mark. To the level of the invitational, I don't know. It needs to be to that level of execution, right? But every dog should have those things in their toolkit because they're going to be a real finished dog. Because I don't really think in the end, like a UT dog, pretty finished, not quite, no brace work yet, you know. Single mark retrieve, we can probably do better, and and then a good add a good blind to that dog, good blind
Yeah, you
retrieve.
can't be a real waterfowl dog without being able to handle
Yeah,
at some blind.
yeah.
At some
Because
level being set in a straight line and going to where a fall happened that you didn't see.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think that, it's kind of a
That's
must, but I don't, but anyways, so that's what's going on this year, and then it kind of has bled into because the invitational doesn't happen until September, right? And so usually I take some dogs with me in September. Either they're dogs that I do a started dog program where I sell the puppy and I raise the puppy. And it's pretty common that those puppies go north with me. Um, I don't know if that'll happen just because um, how that all gets interrupted because of the invitational this year. And then I also do bird dog camp, and invariably somebody, it's usually Western people, but they'll have like it all started this whole bird dog camp thing started because a guy drew a tag, and him and his son were going to go after an elk in September, and so he sent me his dog that he had bought from me, and I just tuned him up on wild birds, and hunted him and just added him into the string so the dog got in good shape and all that. So that's something I do every year too. So that's but this year it's available, but it's going to be different. It's going to be truncated somewhat. This invitational thing is interesting, you know, um, very interesting, but fun. That kind of training is way more fun than any of the other stuff.
plus you
Uh,
need to be in your comfort zone.
yeah, well, and boy, you shouldn't be comfortable, in general. We're not made for it. We think we are, but we're not. And as a trainer, I don't think you should be comfortable. You should be doing tough things all the time, And as a breeder, I think like guys that are comfortable, they go to the dog that's an hour away, right? Guys that want to create great dogs, they get uncomfortable because they take long drives and they go to the dog that's 3 states away, right? I think that's a big difference maker in the breeding, from like average guys to great guys, you know. Um, Not to beat on anybody, I'm not saying that, but so this whole concept of not being comfortable is a big deal in the dog world, I think, you know. Um, so anyways, that's my 2 cents there.
We've been talking for a bit. What else you need to tell me?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Um, it's been an interesting journey. I think that's what I'd say, and I'm certainly not done yet. I don't foresee myself ever getting out of dogs. Um, and I can't imagine me going to a different breed. I'm not interested in anything else. I've trained a smattering of the different breeds that are out there in NAVHDA, and I don't want to own any of them. And some good dogs, some really good dogs, but they're not poodle pointers. Uh, so, we've done a lot of work to get where we're at. All of us breeders have, and the future's in front of us, and we don't know what the heck it's going to hold, but we're going to work hard. I think that's the only thing to say. If you want good dogs, you got to wait. And sometimes you got to jump. That's the other thing I tell people. Like the worst attitude you can have if you're buying a puppy is I'm going to wait for the right time, because the right time never comes. There is never a good time to have a 7 or 8 week old puppy screaming in a kennel in your house while you're trying to sleep, right? That is most likely going to pee and poop in that same kennel that you're going to have to clean up. There is never a right time. There's never a time that you're like, man, I don't want to sleep. Right? Like, oh
I'm
boy,
looking
I
at
really
it.
want to clean up pee today. So just jump, get uncomfortable, you know?
That's good advice because some opportunities don't come back around, and not all litters are created equal.
Yeah,
And some people pass on a litter that it's not going to happen again. I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to find another one like it.
yeah.
So that's good advice.
Yeah, because dogs die, I mean, they get hit by cars and I mean, the world happens out there. And so like we had a great litter, and I tried to redo it and the female died, you know. Um, and so that, there's one litter out there with one really amazing dog in New York that I don't know what's happening with right now. I mean, that dog, his name is Butters. That dog I had steady to wing shot and fall on wild hunts at 13 months on wild hunts, right? Um, so that should be a UT dog, but I don't know what's going on with him because life has happened to the owner. So, so yeah, you're exactly right. Like sometimes these great breedings are going to come and you got to jump. And for the average person, they don't need the best poodle pointer ever bred. They just need a good one, you know. But but they need a Napa dog for sure.
A bad dog is as expensive, or an average dog is as expensive to feed, house, and
Oh
train.
yeah, yeah,
More
yeah, yeah.
more expensive to train than a top
Yes,
dog.
more
I
expensive.
re I remember talking with Bob Ferris, and I'd always tell him, "Send me the dog that make you forget Tucker. That's
Yeah.
that's the one that's good enough for me. That's the one I want. I don't want the whatever your average one is going to be. And of
Well, the
course, you can't.
real the real truth for hunters is if they buy a dog from some lesser breeder, or from some lesser breed or whatever, and it doesn't hunt. So let's just say they buy a hunting dog that doesn't hunt. Do you think they're going to be able to sell it? Because they took the puppy home. Most of them are married. Most of them have kids. The puppy went home and the family fell in love with it. And now you got an expensive pet that doesn't hunt. And that's the best reason to go to a good breeder and to go to Napa, because we're a higher echelon of breeders, right? Because we have access to some of the best poodle pointers in North America. And in fact, I don't know too many of really good poodle pointers that we don't have access to. Um, and so for that guy, there's a way higher chance that the dog's going to hunt, and he's not going to have a dud that he feeds. So